Hello, welcome. We are so excited to have you here joining this beautiful panel of incredible leaders who will be sharing their stories. I'm going to give people a few moments to be joining, and then we'll kick us off. The numbers rising, so welcome and hello. As I started to say, we have this really beautiful panel of awesome leaders who will be sharing their stories today and taking your questions, digging deeper into real conversations about Blackness. So I'm Meredith, I'm CEO of ThinkHuman. I have the incredible honor of being here to welcome you and kick off this conversation and then turn it over to this panel. A little bit of context. Just want to say, with everything happening in the world at this time, we so appreciate you joining to come together as a community and an interracial community to acknowledge and to celebrate Blackness, to highlight Black leaders, and to hear some of their stories and celebrate the beauty of Blackness. So we're going to get started in just a moment and would love to hear from you in the chat, your name and where you are coming in from. I already see some people sharing that. So if you haven't already, please hover over the little chat icon at the bottom and share with us your name and where you're coming in from. All right, I'm seeing people from far and wide, East Coast to West Coast, US and abroad. Love it. All right, welcome. Please, if you haven't already, share your name, where you're coming in from. And if you have done that already, I'd love to also have you answer this question. What are you present to when you think about Black stories and Black excellence? So we want to hear from you. This isn't TV. Your voice matters in this conversation. So reflect on that and drop it into the chat. Please share, what are you present to when you think about Black stories and Black excellence? I'll give you a moment to drop something in there. All right, as that's happening, I love it. I'm seeing beautiful things in the chat. Yes, and as that's happening, let me quickly introduce the partners hosting this conversation. There's ThinkHuman, a manager training company that creates cultural evolution through personal growth. And 15Five, our friend, colleague, and partner, a performance management platform that helps people grow and develop. So in just a moment, you should see a poll show up on your screen. When you see that poll, if you want to hear from either of us, just select that. Let's see if that's going to happen. All right, well, I don't see it on my screen. Maybe you see it on yours. I'll give it one more moment. All right, well, we're just going to move on without that then. I now have the deep honor to hand this conversation over to the amazing LaToya Lynn, celebrated member of the ThinkHuman community and VP of Talent Strategy at Oscar Health, who will be facilitating our discussion. LaToya, in your hands.
Thank you so much, Meredith, and I really appreciate you passing the mic and sharing your mic and your platform with the entire community. So with that, before I go ahead and introduce our lovely panelists, I actually we have a special treat for everyone. And the special treat is from my dear sister, Tina Collins, and she is going to share a beautiful piece to kick us off. So go ahead, Tina.
All right, thank you so much, LaToya. So this is a poem that I wrote some time ago, and it's completely still relevant today. And it's from where I'm from. I'm from a place in Florida where being white and blonde was all the craze, and my racial self-loathing beat down harder than the tropical sun. I'm from a place where anything above a size 0 was outcasted. I am from a place where I was told that my A+ should be an A++. I am from a place of food stamps and struggle, but privileged enough to always have a roof. I am from a society where I was told I am not a queen unless I am a king, unless I have a king. I am from a place where guarding my heart with ironclad steel and feeling numb is a victory. I am from a place where negative self-talk went with the morning paper. Yet, I am from a place that never gives up and refuses to accept failure. I am in a place where I don't always want to win, I want to wake up. I am in a place where my vulnerability is just as powerful and beautiful as my Aries fire. I am in a place where falling apart, acknowledging and embracing emotional defeat is the new journey to the softness in my soul. I am in a place where my tears can fall down and promote my strength. I am in a place where I'm no longer afraid to tell people I love you. I am in a place where I can see my worth and kindly walk away from those who don't. I am in a place where the pouty, natural kink and brilliance of a Black woman makes my heart skip 2 beats. I am in a place where I know I am changing the world. I am in a place where I strive not to obsess about who's prettier than me or smarter than me, and accept that there is no perfection, no security, no problem to solve, no beginning and no end. I am in a place where I love being me, to be fully alive without fear, without shame, because no one else is me.
Yes. Oh my God. That was amazing.
Thank you.
The gifts. And as I continue to show the wonderfulness of our Black excellence, thank you so much, Tina, for sharing that beautiful piece. I want to introduce the rest of the community to our amazing panelists. We have Lynette Barksdale from, where you at? Dallas,
Dallas,
Texas, baby. VP of Diversity and Inclusion at Goldman Sachs. And then we have our brother, James. James, where are you coming in from today?
I'm from Delaware.
That's right. And he is one of our ThinkHuman contributors and a CEO of his own beautiful brand and organization that we'll hear more about. And also our sister over here, Akima Jackson. And I always have to tell, like, where you coming from?
I'm coming from the 8-1 Trey, Tampa Bay, but right now I reside in Houston, Texas. So shout out to Tish, I seen in the chat, and Rachel from Tampa.
That's right, and CEO of her own organization as well that we'll learn more about. And with that being said, you know, we are all here to kind of, this is part 2, and part 1 was just like, woo! You know, we let a lot out, right? And our sister, Tina wasn't here yet, but she just quickly folded into the family with her narrative and her story. And I saw earlier in the chat, you know, Meredith asked, like, you know, Blackness, and we saw so many different things that we defined, right? It's beautiful and it's bold and it's all these amazing things, right? It's our future, our past, our history. But with part 2, I want to dive in a little bit deeper because there's so much happening in the world once again, and how we're showing up on this call as well. So I want to put out the first question, and I'm going to go deep, nice and deep. Okay. How are we meeting the moment today with our Blackness? So anyone can kick that one off. How are we meeting the moment today with our Blackness?
Latoya, I'll jump in, and thank you, Latoya, for moderating us again for part 2. You know, I think it's so interesting in this moment, the platform that has been created around this conversation. And in this moment, I feel as though we should really be thinking about how we individually want to utilize this space and our voice to pay homage to our ancestors who fought this fight for us to be here, and the fight that we are currently fighting ourselves every single day, when we get up just to walk outside or go to the grocery store or even sleep in our own homes. Like, so to me, it really is about taking stock and reflecting a lot on how I want to show up. And right now, for me personally, I've been just thinking a lot about my current environment, my work environment, my workspace, how I engage with my colleagues, the call to action that I'm hoping to employ to others around me, because it can't just be my voice always, right? And so I'm really using this space to call to action other people and active allies who want to join the conversation. But, you know, I am just in all of the Blackness of being just creative and innovative and bold and, you know, game changers, culture carriers. I want to show up with all of that.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you on that. And just to add to it, right now, I'm meeting the moment with courage. Courage to move forward, even though I don't know what tomorrow looks like. Courage to be potentially rejected, but still standing firm on a foundation that I'm married to the outcome and not necessarily the steps, because I want something different to happen. I recognize the cultural shifts that's going on in the movement. And I realize that the outcome is way more important than my temporal, temporary emotions of fear or rejection, or, you know, others discounting my efforts or my Blackness. I want something different to happen. So when I have these conversations with leaders such as yourself, that's here today, and family and friends, it's asking deep down inside, being authentic with yourself. What are you willing to sacrifice in this moment?
Right.
Because courage, it's not always I gotta be in front, right? To me, courage is the management of fear. Okay. So what are you willing to sacrifice in this moment that you're comfortable with? I'm not asking you to do these certain things to sound good and to get a parade from me as a Black person. Nah, I'm not asking you to do that. But what are you okay with? Organically, what's authentically you? And you can say, you know what, I'm willing to, like Lynette said, stand in this moment, meet you, and then we walk forward as an accomplishment, right? Partnership to make some change.
Oof, I love that. You know, I mean, people are tweeting in the chat, courage, management of fear. And I think, you know, both you and Lynette are marrying this concept of like just kind of sitting within yourself.
Yeah.
And holding on to that. I want to hear from my brother, James.
Yeah, I would say in this moment, and again, I would always preface with, we're not a monolithic people, so I would never want anyone to take away that, or that I'm making a generalization. But I also feel that in this moment, I believe I am, and I think a lot of us are, you know, kind of the genie's out the bottle, so to speak, right, and not going down. And I think there's a sense of not compromising in terms of there need to be a series of ands in this moment, right? So we are, you know, standing forward to, we need to stop a number of things like death and inappropriate treatment, but there are a number of things that have to get started to really eradicate systemic racism, and we want both, right? So we don't just want some satisfaction here and some CEO jobs or some board placements or some VP C-suite things. We want the full Monty of the things necessary that we've known for a long time, by the way. This is not new news. It's just that in prior situations or in prior movements, we may have taken a step back. And I think that sense of compromise is gone, I believe, in this moment.
Yes.
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 Yeah.
Go ahead, Tina. Go ahead, girl.
And I feel like, where, you know, the moment of meeting my Blackness, and we all sort of said it in the same way, is being able to like I think of advocate, like in the sense of like advocating with my voice not just for the collective, but specifically for myself in small moments. When especially when I feel uncomfortable with necessarily like pushing back in my personal life, and whether I have to, where I'm talking to a doctor or where I'm, or even having a difficult conversation or dealing with something at work. Like, I think it's just so important to that, like, is to push back so that we can show up and we can show up for ourselves and show up for how we feel. Because I know that Hakima mentioned it about like authenticity, just kind of showing up with that authenticity, and that all encompasses just like advocacy. And I know we talk about it oftentimes in this really large sense, but it's so important to like think about it for ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, James. You want someone to say something?
I was just agreeing in full.
Yeah, I think for me, when I think about hearing what everybody is saying in summary around meeting the moment, I mean, part of meeting the moment is really checking in with myself, my community, my inner circle, my family, and making sure that they're okay. Because, as people of color, we have a situation in life or in the world where we have to constantly kind of work through and layer in, how to incorporate our Blackness or try to pull it back a little bit. Or like, does my Blackness fit in this particular square peg, round hole type vibe? And I think, meeting the moment with our Blackness is all glory of what it encompasses of being a Black person in this entire world, in this entire lifetime. So I think that's, for me, is like an important question. And then we're gonna string that through along. But I want to kind of pivot, if I can, and talk about who we are and our stories, right? And for the audience that are listening in, the attendees, thank you so much for being here and listening to these stories. And I hope you find some relationship, to it from a humanistic standpoint. But a lot of traditions that Black people and people of African descent have is through oral storytelling, right? We hear stories through that, and you're going to hear a play on that throughout this call and webinar, which is a great learning experience for everyone. And, when it talks about our Blackness and meeting the moment, who we are and what transformed us, I want to start with James, if you may, kind of tell me a little about, in a minute or so, tell us about who you are in your story and how you come to be.
Okay, I'll try to do it in a minute. So I grew up in North. You can hear me okay?
Yeah,
Great.
Yeah, I grew up in North Philadelphia, not too far, in an area called Nicetown, which is not too far from, I would say, 8th and Butler, which at the time growing up in the late 70s, early 80s, was a huge nationally known area for drug trafficking, etc. And at that time, the sentiment was, if you're not going to be an athlete or a musician, then your chances of making it out of that area were pretty difficult. And at that time, my mother and father had just split up, I remember, right around at that time, and I didn't feel, I had a lot of support, right? I didn't feel my father's validation. I struggled with a lot of things. But I found some community, right? I found a good summer job. I found some other things, and I struggled in different parts as I was going through high school. And even when I tried to go to college initially, my financial situation didn't work out, et cetera. And I just struggled. But I worked hard, and I found some mentors along the way that really helped me make it through some things, right? And but along the way, then you get this thing, and you start making it through corporate areas and whatnot. And people start saying, "Well, you're special." And I remember the first time you hear, you're like, "Oh, that's kind of cool." I'll kind of make it, and then you go, "Wait a minute. Special is not scalable, right? This is exactly the problem that I just fought from, right? Initially was, how do I go back and show more people how to make it? But showing an individual how to make it is different from really building systems and infrastructure, right, to help people make it programmatically, right? And so that's my story. So that's really what, as I started working my way through corporate, my first goal was, how do I get to a C-suite role to help pull people through corporations? And I did that initially. And then I said, I really want to figure out how to exit so I can really spend my full time, if you will, on that. And that's what I do now in terms of running the CoreLink solution.
Amazing. And I think the biggest highlight there is, I'm seeing in the chat, you know, special is not scalable. And I want to think a little bit about special, because I saw a couple of our eyebrows kind of go like, you know, we've all may have heard that, right, in some part of our life about what it means to be special, or the special one, the gifted one, the chosen one. And what feelings come up from that? And James, you can lead that one, and if anybody's want to pick up on that, like what comes up from that?
Yeah, well, one is that so many, we're all special first. Let's just start there, right? We're all created with unique gifts and talents, period, right? Whether we hone those gifts and talents is our individual choice. Whether other people recognize them or not is other individuals' fault. Let me put it that way. So no, I'm not special, right? The fact that the schools in our areas and whatnot may not have the resources and stuff to usher me through and do the right things to help me hone those things is a problem. It's a systematic problem, and it's a systemic problem, particularly since we are all paying for those schools and whatnot, right? And I can go off on a whole soapbox on that one. So I'll just start right there. So when I hear special, I just start with, I should not be special. I should be typical.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
and Latoya, and I think when I hear that, and the reason my eyebrows shut up, and I love that, James, I will be using that absolutely, is that, you know, part of it is that it goes back to what James, I think, said at the beginning, is that we're not all monolithic. And I think when you think about special, it's that then you try to replicate that one thing that you see in that one person of color, that intersection of that you see of diversity. And that's the danger, right? Because there's so much innovation and creativity in all of us in different ways. And I think when you try to hang on to that special, or we're just trying to get that one person in the C-suite, right? Like that is where you come into this danger of hearing this one voice. And I think that is why it's so important for us to, again, completely try to dismantle the systems that exist so that we can rebuild them in a way where we're bringing the best out of people. And I think that is what we need to coach our leaders towards. That is what we need to talk to companies about, is how do we bring the best out of people? And then I think that then allows you to have a lot of different unicorns, right? And not just one, is what we're seeing right now.
Right, right.
Yeah. And James, I'm just thinking about when you said, you were told you were special, I keep thinking about how I was always told that I was special, but I was different. And when people say different, they mean like, oh, you're not like other Black people.
Yeah.
And that's why you're special. That's why, you're getting this promotion, why you're getting all these things, because you're different. So that's immediately what I thought about. And I really like what you said, that like, it shouldn't be about me being special, because I shouldn't be viewed as like this one individual thing. I shouldn't be viewed in a vacuum. I want to be viewed as typical, and I understand what you mean. Like, we're all special, but the world needs to see that everyone is special.
Right, right. And then I'm thinking, what happens when I operate outside of those special abilities?
Right.
Think about that.
Yes.
So I then begin to judge myself and others who do as well, right? That operate outside. So, they must not be like me, because they're not acting in this way. That's the system. They want you. That's a way of controlling, right? The behaviors of the staff and the people that's there. Absolutely. Make sure you stay in that special realm, because anything outside of that won't get you the opportunities that you have now.
And I also just think about how vague that definition is, right? Mm-hmm. And then how hard you're trying to stay in the parameters of that vague definition, and that pressure and ultimate trauma and mental, like hardship that causes to someone to stay in that lane. And so I think but Hakima, what you just mentioned made me think about that pressure to stay just in that lane, and what that does to people, and how, I can remember the first time I didn't get a promotion that I said I was going to get, and what that then did to me, because I was like, oh, but I'm special. And, I worked so hard to get there. And I think that, again, goes back to this mental wellness that I think we're going to talk about as well later on. But that is just so important, like I'm trying to release that valve for people, because when you try to fit into that vague definition, you are then putting this pressure on yourself, instead of really trying to understand, well, what is it that I need to succeed here, or to meet my goals, meet my community's goals. Right. It is that vagueness that I think just puts all of this just exorbitant amount of pressure on people that is just it's too much.
Actually, I want you to go ahead and lean in and share your story. And,
yeah, sure. Yeah.
I was
Thanks.
like, finish on, girl. Finish on.
You know, and it's really interesting. I think I had so much passion about that because of my story, because, you know, I grew up in Alexandria, Virginia, right outside of Washington, D.C., or the DMV as we call it, because it all seemed like one in the area. And, you know, I was really raised by a village of people who wanted to ensure that I had every opportunity to succeed in the way that I wanted to succeed. And I think that that started from, you know, going, you know, my parents making sure when I was in elementary school that I was taken out of classes when I actually wasn't learning anything above, you know, what was stretching me, right? Or to a woman who ran a college program when I was in high school, who made sure that I took this really special SAT prep class to make sure I was set up for success to take my SATs. And I just think about, you know, that amount of pressure that I was carrying around. All of these people are investing in me in this one way. One, why aren't we investing in everyone? Why is it that you can only choose one or two people to do this? That's a problem in itself. But then also just thinking about, then what does that mean for what I need to carry? And, you know, I think my mom was great around, like, you know, you don't have to carry it all, it's fine. But I think, again, we carry a lot of generational trauma around success that leads us to take actions and do things that are sometimes, again, just harmful to us emotionally and mentally. But, you know, I went to college at NC State, had a great time, you know, really spent my time focusing on kids in that community and really helping them succeed in school, and knew that I wanted to, from working with people, especially like high school, college students in the program that I was running, I knew that I wanted to go into the people business. And HR was kind of my first kind of venue into that. And just understanding how we treat people, how we engage people, how people are treated differently, depending on, you know, where they come from, or if they can get to work exactly at this certain time or a minute later because the bus schedule runs late, and then therefore we give them a demerit, right? Like, all of these things help me build like how I care about people. And then I pivoted into the tech space and started working solely in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space. And you know, I think the work is still foundational to how I grew up, right? Like, how do I help support communities and people to be able to come to work and bring their best selves to work and actually see themselves and other people around them? I think that's the important aspect, to see themselves mirrored in some way around them. And that's the work that I do currently at Goldman Sachs, as I do on our diversity, equity, and inclusion team. And just, you know, it's really great work to continue to do this. And I think give back to the village that helped build me up and hopefully help create another village for other people.
That's awesome. Anybody, any feelings on that? I'm hearing so many amazing things regarding your background. I hear a lot of people going, you know, go Wolves.
Go Pack.
It's a lot of
yeah, it's Wolfpack, yes.
It's actually on the as part of the community at this.
I love this NC State community. This is great.
Didn't expect that.
That's awesome.
Okay, anybody want to speak on that, or anybody else want to like just jump in with their story?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think of when I listen to your story, it sounds so beautiful and amazing, and it makes me think about I guess like things that I've seen on TV, which is like amazing that this happens in life. And also like I kind of jumped in because like I think in a lot of ways you and I have a very opposite. Although I feel like the outcome is similar in the sense of like where we are today and like in who we stand firmly in, like, you know, everything just is very different. So I'll just kind of jump in with my story. So I mentioned in my poem that I'm from Florida. I grew up in Spring Hill, so that's also in the Tampa Bay area. So me and Hakima, we're here, girl. And but like definitely. So I grew up in a super, super small town. K through 12, I was the only Black person in my classroom, and maybe one of 3 people of color. So that kind of gives you like the picture of like how I grew up. And my mom was a single mom. And I mean, really just in the sense of how I actually learned about Blackness at all. Like I knew I was Black and I knew that I was different, but I actually didn't learn about Blackness only until I was in school. So like thinking about like all of like the colonized lens that we all learned Black history, that's how I learned my Blackness. And, you know, I feel that like, you know, I think about, you know, as I reflect on my childhood and just kind of thinking about like how much I didn't learn when I was a child of just like my skin, my hair, like I wore weaves, I had my hair, I permed my hair and well until adulthood. And just thinking about how like, I know that my parents meant well, but like in the sense of not teaching me Blackness. Like, and I feel that like what had happened was that my parents wanted me to believe that everyone's the same. Like, you know, like we're all equal, but that erased my Blackness in like having that mindset. So, so I feel like, you know, like, but like, you know, on the other side of things, because like in a way, I feel like my parents felt like they had to mold me in a certain way so I could conform, so I could be special, right? I could be that special Black person that everyone wanted to be around and wanted to work with. It gave me a sense of how to strategize, going to college, getting my MBA, and strategizing my career in a way that I felt I had security, like I had financial security. And, you know, I feel like, you know, even when I was like moving through, because my background is primarily in higher education, but there was a moment where I did work in HR. And I remember that very corporate setting and like, you know, conforming in that setting as well. And always feeling uncomfortable about it. Like I still wasn't sure what my Blackness was, but I was still like kind of uncomfortable with how I was expected to show up. And then it's really just like, kind of like now that I'm in a space where I'm back working in higher education, you know, I have this foundation of also being able to be an entrepreneur and start my own company. And, you know, that's where, and, you know, through even starting my own company, People of Color Productions, I was able to find my Blackness. And, you know, I'm 34 years old and, you know, I'm just kind of like coming into this, but, you know, it's so, I don't know, in a lot of ways, although like I think about, I wish I knew my Blackness when I was growing up, I have this sense of pride of like, the system didn't break me. I didn't become what the system wanted me to be. I started off like that, like earlier in my career, and I didn't speak up. I did everything I was supposed to do. Didn't, like Lynette had mentioned about not getting the promotion, I didn't get the promotions, right? So I did everything I was supposed to do and I didn't get what I was told my reward would be. And here I am now with People of Color Productions and producing a film centering Black people and people of color. And it makes me realize how much that, as much as the system tries to break us down, we rise above. And that's where I take that away, is that like, it's just like, you know, like, it's like, you know, better late than never. And that's where I am with that. And that's in the work that I do with People of Color Productions and through the film that I'm producing, it's celebrating that. It's celebrating, yes, we've had these hardships, but that made us who we are. And no one else can be who we are because our lived experiences are so different. So let's embrace ourselves, because when we embrace ourselves, we embrace the collective.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah.
There is a lot in that.
Yes.
I am trying to fight back some tears, but I'm holding it together. Like my edge cream I have on my hair. You know, so much comes up, and you know, Tia and I also, we share another thing, that we're both Jamaican, of Jamaican ancestry. And our stories can be so different, you know, but I feel so connected at the same time. And we're going to continue to unpack that. Does anybody have any responses or thoughts on Tina's story? What comes up for us?
Just I love your point about that despite the system's intent and what took place, it didn't break you, right? That you
Right.
found your way, and it's such a big point, and it's a point that many of us have had to deal with in different ways, right? Different levels of gravity of stories, and thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And I just want to add that there is this element, I mean, that it's so powerful that we are here and can talk about that system, but there is a level of privilege that exists when you can talk about how the system did not break you, when the system has broken so many of our people
Right.
in our community. And I think that's, you know, how we are connected, Tina, to what you said before you shared your story, is that, you know, we are here to try to tell those stories and to try to remove these systems and to share the narrative in ways that it hasn't been shared before. And I think that's what's important about how we're moving forward. But I do not want to, I would be remiss if I just did not mention that the system has broken so many of our people. And my
Yes.
hope is that, you know, these collective conversations that we're having and the roles that we are taking on, and again, no one's role is the same, is around how do we help bring our community closer together to being able to then go past what those systems have created. And so I do just want to call that out, because there are many of us who cannot sit here on this panel today and say the same thing.
Right.
That's so true. And it's a great balance conversation on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see this as a gift, you know, like I shared in the previous our episode, this is our reunion, but I see this, my Blackness, now as a gift. Before, similar to Tina, I'm originally from Tampa, Florida. Right now I reside in Houston, Texas. Just to share a little bit of background about myself. So I'm the first in my family to graduate high school as well as go to college. My mother had me at 16 to make sure that she, you know, was able to make ends meet and to take care of me and my 6 siblings. She sold drugs growing up. So I lived next to the crack houses, the prostitutes, you name it. But like Tina, the system didn't break me. My story they thought was written, and I decided to tear out those pages and create my own. And so what that looked like was actually similar to Lynette. I got connected to community organizations like Inroads and Upward Bound that gave me exposure to corporate environments, but to taught me to act the part. So I seen someone posted in the chat here. It's like sometimes we as the Black community, you know, also accept this special narrative and say, hey, you're special, you're different, so you go do this, and we'll deal with the other people. They'll do the meaningless things, but you're special, so stay along this road. And so I did, and through that journey, thankfully I was blessed with opportunities. The core of my expertise rests in the technology industry, specifically SAP and Oracle. I was at one of the big fours, PricewaterhouseCoopers, for 14 years. I transitioned into talent management, executive coaching about 6 years ago. One reason why I started my coaching practice, which is Divinely Powered Leadership Development and Executive Coaching Practice, is because I myself experienced discrimination, not one time, not two, but multiple. But I realized instead of allowing the system to break me, there was something different that I had to do. I couldn't allow the staff and the people that's coming behind me to experience some of the things that I did. So I wanted to help them write their story once they walked in. I wanted to help them recognize that their uniqueness, that their Blackness is something that is of value, is something that should be treasured, is a mosaic that should be seen as priceless. But, you know, it takes work. This journey, it hasn't been easy, but like I said, I am married to the outcome. Mm-hmm. And I know this outcome will be great, because right now I am sitting in my greatness. I am sitting in this freedom space that I believe that no one should not have access to. So this Blackness that I have is me operating in my freedom and me operating in a space that I will not allow anyone to take away from me.
Amen.
I think what's so amazing around being married to the outcome and driving that really pulls in, you know, for me. And, you know, a couple of things come up for me, and I'll share who I am. You know, if I'm honest, the system has broken me a couple of times. I'm gonna be honest. And I think I think we can take this opportunity to define what that means, because it is different layers, right? You know, systems can break by killing people that we've seen. Systems can break by putting our people in jail. Systems can be broken people by, you know, denying them health benefits, coverage, opportunities, awareness, access, all the things, you know? And in this moment, there is something around, I don't know how to put this in words, but I know you guys will understand what I'm saying, is when, well, I'm originally from New York. My family's from Jamaica. And I'm the firstborn American in my entire family on both sides. And being from that, I had a perspective of what it was like to be a Black America in the US with the history of the South and slavery. And then there was the other narrative of Jamaica being the slave depot for all of the islands across the Caribbean. And that was also my heritage there too. And really trying to understand my position in this world, right? Because as a kid, I was filled with, you are the future, you are the beginning, you are the everything for our next generation to come, which is a little bit of pressure for a child, but whatever, I took it. But I was nurtured, and in moments where I saw the system break for people around me, I also was broken a bit too. And it was always a moment where it was like, I'm gonna move forward and I'm gonna bring people with me. Or I'm gonna move forward. I mean, how many of us have done that? How many of us had gotten in a situation and be like, hey, so-and-so, I know you need this. Do you want in on this? Because the system broke you or failed you. So I think I say all of that in our stories around the humanization of how we feel for all of us out here, and all the participants listening, is, you know, how much work it takes to kind of show up and be this is the punchline here, right? There's so many different things that we got to think about and consider to even show up in front of everyone today at this moment, because we're still fighting a system that's trying to break us.
Yeah.
Because we've seen what it looks like when it happens. We're not too far from it, right? None of us is sitting here and be like, well, I'm all right. I done got the corporate job.
Yeah.
I got the house and the da-da-da. Go ahead, James. I know you're ready. Go ahead.
Oh, I think that's so important because actually, no, I think that's so important because somebody actually asked the question, right? James, what issues do you have today as a Black man? Someone asked that in the chat. And I think that's, people think once you've made it to a certain title or a certain role or certain economic status, that all the things that we're talking about have like evaporated, like they've gone away. And I can't tell you how wrong that is. In fact, I almost feel like they've intensified, right? So here's what it feels like. I have to decide on Saturday, depending on where I'm going, can I just go in my sweatpants, or do I need to put on slacks and some shoes and a dress shirt, right? My wife would say, well, if you're going there, you know you should dress up. I'm like, well, no, why can't I just go, right? And well, you know how they might receive you, right? I remember, I'll never forget this, 2-3 years ago, I was working in Oklahoma and we were living in Dallas, Lynette, and our corporate headquarters, we would work Monday through Thursday and usually come home on Friday mornings or so. We got off one day that Thursday and I wanted to head home early, right? Be in my own bed. My wife said, well, it's almost dark. I don't want you driving home now, right? And I knew exactly what she meant. Not because she's worried I'm gonna get pulled, Crips and Bloods. She does not want me to have an interaction with a police officer at night, period. That is the common fear. 2 weeks ago, I'm in a concealed carry class with 3 other Black men. We're all doing all the right things. All our guns are legal, everything's right. You know what our biggest question was at the end of that class? How do we get home with our guns? We know we're gonna do the right thing, but if we got pulled over, right, and we're asking our instructor, he's like, well, in the state of Delaware, this is what you do. We're like, yeah, but for us, what do we do?
I need the
Right?
details of how to get from out the
Yeah.
door into the car.
Right, like how do, he's like, well, you know, this is what you're supposed to do. But like, yeah, but for us, like if a cop, like, and we're all like, yeah, like we didn't think about that, right? And another one, you know, 6 months ago, we're looking for commercial property for our company. I can't tell you, I had to probably go through 3 realtors who questioned whether or not we had the financial capacity to do it. So I could give you 5 more examples, but the point is, it doesn't change, right? And then we have to think about our children. And then when you first make the entrance, by the way, into corporate life, you go through this period of, with the Black community, almost being looked at as a little bit of, are you leaving us? Are you still with us? And then the corporate community, almost as if they want to make you choose, right?
Yep.
Like, you know, I'm not going to choose, right? This is still my family, still my community. So it is very complex. And by the way, we don't turn away usually any mentorship. So we usually are mentoring dozens of people as we continue to make our climb. Because one of the things is like watching a movie when you see people at the end leave and the hero finally makes it and it's great and they go off into the sunset. When we look back on our sunset, there are millions of people we still care about along with generations behind. So we don't just go off in the sunset and ride and take what we have. We feel this need to turn around and go back and figure out how we're breaking down that wall.
Great.
all of that. So people think that we're sitting here with our corporate lives and we're doing our thing. You know, I'm from the hood. I'm from St. Albans, Queens, born and raised, and my people aren't all there with me. It's a big point about they make you want to choose. I love that. Lynette, you were going to say something, or Tina.
I threw my hands up because I didn't know what. Honestly, I think James just literally broke it down. But I mean, I think that and so many other examples, especially around being the intersection of being a Black woman and how society treats Black women, period, whether it be going to the doctor, whether it be, to James' point, like, again, driving at night, all of those examples and more. But I think it is this collective responsibility, and again, not speaking for everyone, but this collective responsibility that I have seen from the many people that are within my circle, my executive cabinet, as I like to call the people who show up and coach me. It is so important to know that the work is done when I finish my 9 to 5 meetings in the day, right? The work continues when I have someone reach out to me on LinkedIn and say, oh, I'm interested in this field or that field, and can you talk to me for 15, 20 minutes? And I'm gonna give them 30 or 45 minutes. It's continues when someone messages me and says, oh, I'm new to this diversity and inclusion work. No one is giving me support at my company. What do I do? And I'm sitting here trying to figure out, how do I ensure that someone does not flail and struggle and have a breakdown in this space doing this work? It is consistent work. And I think that is what's so important for everyone to remember, is that, this work continues, but it's so important to find your balance and your own mental health and wellness in this space, because if you don't, you can't help the community that needs you most. And so, that is the thing that I just think is so important, especially right now, where you have these images from the media, your friends and family, COVID. Let's not forget about COVID. That is still a thing, right? Like, all of these things are weighing on people, and we have to find a way to balance these things in a better way than what I'm seeing right now.
Right. I want to bring that into the next fold, because what I'm hearing is, like, all the things around, constantly doing outreach. I mean, I've been in the HR field for over 10 years. There are still people that are Black that still reach out to me and ask me for advice, literally. Like, that is a thing. So with that, I want to talk about something that was near and dear to me, and also in my individual conversations with all of you. I want share with me either a person, public figure, or someone that is in your family that has really inspired you like you just follow and you focus on them, and you really want to learn from them, or you see their footsteps. So take a minute and marinate on that, and share with me. And I'm gonna pivot to Tina, if you have someone faster, or Hakima, either one of you, and then we can kind of go backwards on that one. I'm really looking forward to sharing mine because it's a little random.
All right, Tina,
Yeah.
you want to go? You got it first?
You go.
Okay. So my person that I have two, sorry, Latoya. First, I have my mentor at the age of 15. So I entered into corporate America at 15 as a co-op student from Tampa Bay Technical High School, from my Tampa people. And that environment was tough because at 15 was actually my first introduction to discrimination. And it was a mentor of mine that pulled me to the side in the stairs actually and said, hey, I want to let you know that there's a secret meeting. They're meeting to vote you out, but most of the team wants to keep you here because you don't look the part. Again, I came from a family where corporate America, all that's foreign. My mother was used to hustling or blue collar work. And so I had to figure it out. And she helped me figure it out. From her wisdom and just exposing me to what a Black woman looks like in corporate America. And I needed that example because my mother didn't know how to help me in this realm. So, and then, with her being vulnerable and transparent, to me, it shaped me on my move to my next level opportunity. And that really was important to me because if I didn't have her, I don't know where I would be as it relates to that corporate experience. And I do believe that's God sent. And lastly, it's my mom. And I don't want to sound cliche, but when I tell you she is a prayer warrior to the T, this woman knows how to get on her knees and ask God for direction, and it is always revealed to her, regardless on whatever struggles or disappointments that she may experience. She always comes out on top. And so she's teaching me that discipline is very important. That spiritual connection, whoever your source is very important during this time, because not only are we in a health pandemic, we're in a spiritual pandemic as well. People don't know where to turn. They don't even have the community. So then what else do I do? Who else do I look up to? And so they're losing it and trying to figure it out, and potentially just lost faith in everything. And staying true to your spiritual source is very important to me. So I always say, follow your own GPS. Following your gift, your purpose, and your source to keep you sound during this time. So I close with that.
That's
Yeah.
that's the offering plate. That's it now.
We done got a church sermon up in here. We ain't
Sorry, y'all. I didn't mean to.
love it.
That's a part of my Blackness, everybody.
I love it. And I love
Blackness.
your heart. All right. Anybody else who wants to jump in on it?
I'll jump in. For me, I was trying to think of one specific person, and I've just been inspired across so many spectrums in my life that I can't be one specific person for me, at least in this moment. All I think about is community. That's really, I think about the people in my community, the influencers, the change makers, the movement workers that I see constantly, on the ground, doing the work, whether it's at a protest or whether it's giving a lecture or whether it's just even mentoring. And I found this community, and I talk a lot about the film that I'm doing because it's related into how I began to find my Blackness and find my community, because since I'm doing a documentary, I'm talking to the community. I'm going out into the community, and I'm learning through talking with community and listening to their lived experience. I'm learning about myself. So that's who inspires me and moves me when I'm just seeing all of this happening out in the world. I look at certain people in the community that is just like doing amazing things and saying and seeing that like there's hope.
Yes.
I think that like sometimes when I that's what like really inspires me and keeps me going, and you know, just having someone to call when I feel down is like so and so that they can just like remind me, not like just kind of like say like this is who you are, like you got it. But I sometimes I just need the reminder, and so that's really like, you know, that's who really I look up to, is the people in my community.
That's amazing.
I can jump in. So there is this woman who was one of the kind of village people, as I would like to call them, in when I was growing up in high school and middle school. And what she did was I don't know if she created the program, but she was kind of the face of this program, which was called College Partnership for Us. And what she did is she raised money somehow and took about 60 kids from my middle school around to different colleges across kind of the East Coast, where we got to experience what college life was like. And she built programming on top of that, where we went to different universities and was able to kind of live the college life while we were in high school. I mean, just this incredible woman who truly lived, Miss Scarborough lived for the community. She lived to help make sure that the community was better. The program that she did changed so many people's lives. I was actually having a socially distant lunch with some of my girlfriends from high school, and we were talking about this woman still 20 plus years, I won't age myself, later, right? Like around this woman and her impact. And the thing that I remember is that, you know, we lost her a couple of years ago, young, I mean, still young and in her prime. And it just reminds me that we just work so hard for everyone. And again, taking this stop and this index of what we need, and that even life is just so short. And so thinking about the burden that you are carrying today, one, like, how can you make that lighter? How can you live out and experience this life in a way that gives you joy and fulfillment and purpose, right? And so it just like, she reminds me of that every day of like, I'm not showing up as half Lynette because I don't know how much time I have left here. So I'm going to show up as full Lynette and do the things that I need to do to build out a legacy, because she created a legacy in me and her children and everyone who was able to participate in those programs. And it's just so important to think about these moments that we have and to not let them go by the wayside. And so that's what she reminds me of every single day. And I think, you know, those are the people that I think just carry and lift me.
Yes.
And not to forget about our Black Panther, Chadwick. I didn't even want to bring it up. Like, also, again, how life is just so short.
Yes.
I don't want to, you know, life is just so short. And so I'll turn it over to James, but that's,
Yeah.
That's good. So mine is I've never met him, but I've just admired him. You guys are gonna laugh when I say this too. John Amos, right? So for two reasons, right? One, just the character he played, James Evans on Good Times. So, and part of that has to do with my story, right? So having lost my father.
America, he was a father coming to America. He was good.
Yes, but really for me, it was James on Good Times, because he had like a third grade education, but he would work so hard to do anything for that family. He was willing to go back to school at night after working 2 jobs during the day. He was a dishwasher and then worked at the car wash, right? Then he went to be a construction guy, then an apprentice program. And through the episodes that he was on, he probably did at least 7 or 8 different things to continue to advance himself, and the system would never give him the opportunity. Yet at the same time would teach his children, this is the best we have right now, so you need to do well at it so you can help your people once you make it through, right?
Yes.
And then the second part I've always loved him is the reason he left the show is because he felt that the show producers didn't live up to the promise of the show, which was to continue to educate the community. So as they let JJ's character unravel into what he called a lot of foolery, he spoke up about it. And he said, I'm not good with this, right? And so that's when they killed him off the show. And so he was willing to let his career go and be sort of blackballed for a while for the sake of that principle, right? And I think that's indicative of what we all are talking about in this moment. We will have a cost associated with speaking up for what we believe in, period.
Yep.
It's such a huge thing. And, you know, what a great example, you know, of a person. And wow, I mean, for me, you know, my mom, my grandmoms, all of them, both of my grandmothers were illiterate, and they're just really smart, hardworking women. And I learned so much from them, you know, from their stories and their struggles in the past. But there was actually one individual who I never met as well that I actually, and you guys gonna laugh. So I grew up in St. Albans, Queens, housing, you know, so there was, you know, there were single middle, you know, low middle class families, you know, up and coming families. And I had this neighbor, this old man, and everyone has an old man neighbor. and whenever you know, oh, hi, Mr. You know, Mr. Reynolds, how you doing? You know, you walk to the store, wherever you're going, you see him, you say hello. And every day he will stop me. He was like, young lady, come over here. Let me tell you a story. And every day he stopped me. So I had to make sure that I allowed it time, or maybe try to find another route if I didn't have time to stop and hear what he had to say to me. And he would stop me every single time he saw me, like, young lady, come over here, young lady. Let me tell you something. What you know about boxing? And I'm like, boxing, you know. And at that time, it was like, you know, Mike Tyson and all that, you know, going on. And I'm like, yeah, I know about boxing. No, young lady, what you know about boxing, like fighting, like real fighting. And I was like, well, you know, whatever I knew. So I said, let me tell you somebody. Let me tell you a story. You ever heard of a boxer named Jack Johnson? And I was like, Jack Johnson, who the hell is that? And he shared with me, Jack Johnson was the first Black heavyweight champion at the turn of the century. You know, he played from I think late 1800s to 1915, which you can only imagine what the world was like. And he was a heavyweight champion. And he would say, well, let me tell you about him. Let me tell you something. It's very important for you to understand that there are winners and losers in this world. And every chance you get, you knock them out. I said, wow, I'm not fighting little pigtails, tiny little no, you knock them out. But what he was sharing with me was that when Jack Johnson got in the ring, he had two choices. If he didn't make it very clear to the judge that he knocked his opponent out, if they give him any moment to deliberate, it will go to the white guy.
Wow.
He made it very clear that he was going to knock this guy out. So there'll be no questions.
Yeah.
So I studied boxing, you know, as a kid to understand the stance of it, the strategy, the spirit of it. That you only have a choice to do one thing or another, because if you do anything in between that, it's going to be a favor to the white person.
That's good.
And you know, he told me that story every single time I passed him, by the way. So, you know, every single time I had to pretend I heard it for the first time.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow, yeah. I never understood it until I got older.
Yeah.
And what he was doing for me was planting a seed to be victorious and win.
Yeah. It's good.
And
Yeah.
Latoya, I think another thing that he was doing, which is so powerful, right, is like this story about how things have been created and built for, if there is a question, for it to always be perceived negative versus it being perceived positive. And I think about, you know, whether that be if someone has a weapon, or whether that be if someone has malintent, or if someone is being aggressive in the workplace, or if someone is showing up and, you know, like a minute late. Like, there are just so many assumptions that people make about individuals, especially Black people and people of color, that goes back to what we're talking about being special, is that it almost forces you to be this perfect human, so that there is no question about what you're doing. And again, I think that story is just so powerful, because it does make you think about, well, where are the places where there can't be a question, right? And I think there can't be a question around how connected we are. One of the things I truly believe in is making sure that anyone in my workplace or even my neighbors, like they see me, that they know they're not the only person, right? Like you have someone else here down the street. If you need for me to watch your house, if I need you to watch my house, like if I see your kids outside, I am here, right? And I think it's just, that is so important. I think that is just so powerful. And you know, I hear you about hearing the story over and over and just saying, yes.
Elders, you gotta be like, yes, Mr. So-and-so, I heard you. You know, you go over it. So I think with that, I wanna talk about the workplace environment. And I thought there was a fun way for us to do it. Because I know there's some questions that are percolating in the chat, and I want to get to them in a very creative way. So we kind of played with this the last time, but I want to try and see how it goes with us here. Okay, so we're gonna set the scene, okay? Stage setting, okay? Scene starts. You come across, wait, how about we change this one? This scene is better. A new Black person starts in your department. How do you welcome them in? And what are the first things you tell them? Okay, go.
Well, usually I'm running to meetings back to back. So usually it's just a little head nod to say, hi, I see you, eye contact, I see you. And then, you know, of course, I'm gonna figure out who that person is so that I can follow up and say hi to them more personally, welcome them. I think it's the same thing that I was just talking about in the neighborhood. If I see you, I'm gonna acknowledge you. And then from there, we determine, because again, we're not all monolithic, we determine what type of route that person wants to take. If they need a mentor, a friend, a coach, if they have no idea what's happening around them, a lot of people, I tell them, you're not crazy, so that they understand that this scene and environment is not normal for them and that there's nothing wrong with them. And so that's usually how I kick off, and then from there determine how people want to engage after that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So well
Usually
said.
for me, you know, obviously I acknowledge them and introduce myself and share my experience working here and in this role. And if we share similar experiences, build that connection and rapport first. But I like what Dr. Talonda Tolbert said. She said, I share the unwritten rules to success and survival. And this is when I'm like, okay, girl, let me get real with you. Or guy, right? This is what it looks like. This is what it is. This is how you play the game, right? I know you guys have probably heard that terminology, playing the game. This is how you're strategic in using your voice. So giving them the playbook so that they can succeed.
Yeah, definitely, Hakima. You know, it's interesting because currently, like, I primarily work in higher education, and you'd think it would be different, especially because a lot of people in my department are Black and brown, and it's not actually. And so I hear that in the sense of when someone new comes in, you know, you think like, oh, because there's so many Black and brown people that, you know, we can be free on ourselves, and that's not the case. Because at the end of the day, like, our president isn't Black or brown. Like, well now he is, but he wasn't historically. You know, like, and then like our administrators, you know, a lot of them, you know, aren't Black or brown. So it's like giving them the playbook, right? You know, giving them like like, this is how, basically it's like, this is what they want you to do. This is what you should do, but this is what they want you to do. And this is the game you have to play. You want to be promoted? You want to do this? You can't do what you want to do.
Woo.
Yeah.
James, I know you got something to say.
No, I can't add anything to that. They covered it. They covered it.
Now I'm gonna bring it to a place where I always bring it. Where do you think that came from?
Oh, you getting real deep now. You know where it came from.
Plantation language.
Yes.
We are still operating as if we're on the plantation.
Mm-hmm.
See a new plane come in and we go, hey.
And also, I do want to be mindful of that. I think it's very important to note that I don't think anyone just wants to show up and operate in that way. I think that it is super important that it is because there are still systems that are in place, and we talk about these systems. So let me talk about these systems, right? Like there are still how people are rated on their performance, how people are chosen to be interviewed, who is put in front of X leader, Y leader, right? Like all of those things, who is chosen out of the sun to stay in the sun, all of those things are still existing in the space that we operate in today. And I think that it is very important that we recognize that, right? And that we try to figure out how do we start to release that in a way in which we're not carrying the trauma from past generations, but that we are recognizing what still exists today and how we need to show up differently than what we needed to before. So all of that is because of learned behaviors and trauma, but we still need to start to unravel some of that in different ways. So for example, you know, I am grateful to be in a space where I can utilize my voice. And one of the ways that I've utilized my voice, instead of saying, oh, everything's okay, when I go into a meeting, is I'm saying, today is not a good day, right? There was a Black man that was killed today, and I just saw the image, and I am actually not okay. And what I'm trying to unravel for this leader or senior leader that I'm talking to is that when you go into your next meeting, that person may not be okay, and that is actually okay for them not to have a smile on their face, pretend that everything is okay, because again, that is the mentality that we have brought with us. And so I think it is very important for those of us who have the privilege to use our voice and start to unravel some of that, do so, because that's the only way we're gonna move from that mentality to where we need to be to start to go past that into the next generation and what we wanna leave for our generation who's coming up behind us. Because I don't want my goddaughter coming into the workplace thinking that she can't use her voice or say she had a bad day. That's just that's not what I'm here to do.
Yeah, and for other people who are, you know, our allies that's on here, there may be some people who are afraid to use their voice. So you got the group of us that we're going to use it, but there are some who are afraid because of retaliation, other things, right? And so, you know, when you think about allyship or accompliceship, create that space to where you can figure out, how can I support you in a better way? You know, or how can I, you know, just give you space so that you can deal with what's presently going on. Allowing them to define what that looks like. Look, y'all, I know we all grown and we got it together. We're leaders, executives. But sometimes we got to get back to the basic and educate ourselves and define at the smallest level. Okay, this is what it is and this is what I need, and be clear about it.
Lynette, I have a question. So like we talk about the systems, but do we feel that like the people in the who are higher ups, who are like, as you said, like putting people in certain positions in order to like separate us, right? Because we think like this because of the plantation. Are they doing the same because of their ancestors? Like, are they, like, do we think it's like, because I don't necessarily feel like they're intentionally saying, oh, like, you know, put Hakima in this meeting and Lynette in this meeting. And like, they have this like conscious reasoning for that. So if we're getting like this behavior from the plantation, they're getting the mindset from their ancestors who were the masters.
Yeah,
well,
it's trauma that's passed.
Tina, I mean, I think you're talking about exactly. Everyone is bringing in generational trauma.
Exactly.
But I also think it is also then another layer on top of it, of that sometimes there are only so few of us that we are then separated out, right? Like if you think about, I mean, think about the percentage of people of color who sit on boards. Think about the percentage of people of color who sit in leadership positions at VP and above. That should be what every company is looking at, because to your point, that's why it's separated, because there's not even enough of us to concentrate us in a space. And so not only are they bringing that level of trauma to how they show up, unconscious or conscious, because it happens in both ways, then it is, now we only have a few people. How do we determine where we're putting those people? And so I think it's all of those things. And I think it is one of those things where unless you are able to recognize it, and that's why I think awareness is so important. ThinkHuman talks a lot about awareness. You know, we talk a lot about how are you really reflecting on yourself and your leadership and how you're showing up every single day to people, like that is how we then dismantle all of that. But you can't, if you just walk the line of, I'm just doing these things because it's what I know or what I remember or what I was taught. We have to unlearn a lot of things and rebuild those mental models around the new way that we want to operate in the workplace.
Yes, James, you were going to say something.
Yeah. Gosh, Lynette, that was so good. And Tina. Okay, so I just want to go back to one thing, kind of what Tina and Lynette said about the whole thing and tie it to a question someone asked about allyship, right? Because I've seen a couple questions around what do I do if I'm an ally bringing in this new person, right? And one of the things I think we've seen through data and studies is that without a doubt, Black folks and people of color lack sponsorship, right? So that's one of the things right from the get-go. If you take a look at your recruiting pipelines and your talent movement pipelines and ask more questions of your recruiters and your HR leaders of how this recruiting pipeline get here, right? And look at the numbers and how this talent movement pipeline get here, you will start to unravel some of your core problems. If you ask, because there was another question, which is, well, what can I do as an ally? Well, one is what some folks are doing now. There's always economic ways, right? Write checks, help out HBCUs, etc. That's on the left side. There are things you can do over to the right side. And to me, the farthest most right thing you can do is, for example, if you're in the C-suite and you're a CFO, that person coming in, like think about where they come from. I know when I think about a new person coming in that was coming into any of my groups, I think about if I help them succeed, they probably want to go help another 1,000 people succeed, right? So I always see this ratio multiplication factor. And if they fail, that's 1,000 people we failed, right? So I am vested. So if you take that same approach and help that one and even go another further and said, I said that on purpose, and said, how can we get mentoring programs with the school that you came from, the high school in your area? So we have a CFO pipeline that's coming from some of the best academics in that school. Now you're getting there. Now you're donating to that school and you're taking your human capital and creating social capital with that school. Now that's, to me, the entrenched allyship. That is now pulling generations forward into your company, creating a new talent pipeline that doesn't exist today. As long as the talent pipeline is what we do, it's almost like playing pickup football in your neighborhood. We don't pick the people with the best skills. We pick people we're comfortable with. I pick Tim because I know Tim. I pick John because I know John. I pick Steve because I know Steve. I'm not going with Steve is the best wide receiver. I guess, and Johnny's the best running back. He's going to run a great. I pick what I'm comfortable with. This is what happens in corporations all day, and we already know this. So if you want to break the data, right, and have truly heterogeneous teams instead of homogeneous teams, you've got to change your behavior as a leader. So if you want to be an ally, either you're going to be on the left, somewhere between, or on the right, and make that bold move and say, I'm going to go to these schools that don't get that attention today, and we're going to do some strong mentorship programs and sponsor people through the process.
Yes.
I want to say this is beautiful. And I think this kind of pulls us into a space where I want to talk about our affirmations, right? And what that actually means to the Black community to have affirmations. And to really kind of recite these mantras to kind of help us kind of, move forward. We were only given like small tokens of information to carry for whatever journey that we were going to go on, whether you get it from your grandmother, the neighbor, or whomever else. So I really want to kind of share a couple, and I want everyone to kind of just respond and confirm or feel, whatever. Okay, you ready? And for the audience, I'm going to drop it in the chat while I speak to them. Okay, let's go. I am enough. I will not confirm or lesser my standard to appease or appeal anyone who does not accept me for who I am and what I am. Okay.
I mean, for me, that is a huge one. That's a huge one because I've never felt enough. Even when I was like 5 years old and I was put in a weave for a wedding. So like, what is that telling that 5-year-old girl? But also I think about as someone who's a Black woman with a fat body. And it only like the healing work that I've done to be able to say, I am enough, and to believe it, and to hear you say it, and my inner voice said, and my inner voice is agreeing with you, is so powerful for me because of the journey I took to get there.
All right, anybody else?
I would just say it's a mantra that I try to repeat to myself every day, because you are going to go. And I want to recognize that I see in the chat a lot of people saying they are just struggling with the burden of everything going on around them. And just to say that, you are enough, like what we are doing, even if you can't do it all, what you are doing, how you show up, that you get up, you are enough. And I think that to me is so powerful to know that, the things that I'm doing, and I know it's not moving mountains right now, but I know it's enough for this time in this space, in this place. So that's when I hear that, that's what I think.
What I hear is, and you know what, Lynette, for some of us here, it may not even have to move mountains, as long as you're taking that step forward. That's what being enough is. That's what feeling like you don't have to conform to the status quo. Moving in your own flow. Marissa said something that really touched me. She said, she had to leave a director role, and it focused on diversity and inclusion because she started to see herself being someone else and living outside of her values. When I'm enough, I'm operating in my own values, the integrity, the humility, the transparency, the vulnerability, and I am okay with that. I'm not going to be someone else's opinion, right? I'm going to be who I think I should be, because I know that his divine power, that for me is God's divine power, has given me everything that's required for life. I just have to connect to it and know that I'm enough.
Yes. I'm going to paste in the next one, and I want James, if you want to marinate on this one while I read it out. I will allow myself to evolve. I will trust my process and applaud myself on my progress. I am trying and will recognize that is enough.
Yes. It's hard sometimes to celebrate us. Go ahead, James. I know. I'm sorry. I just blurted that out. It's hard. Yeah.
I'm telling you, I'm getting that plate out.
Yeah. No, stop. Go ahead, James.
No, I feel like Tina. I've struggled with most of my life feeling like I'm enough. Right. It's been in recent years that I've really accepted myself fully. But you still have those moments, right, where you struggle with, are you delivering? Are you making an impact? Are you doing those things? And last week I had a low point, and someone sent me something like right when I needed it. It's amazing how you get something right when you needed it. And it was just a short piece of scripture and a nice note. And it was Colossians 3:23. Work willingly at whatever you do as though you were working for the Lord rather than for people. That's all I needed, right? That's all I needed, because that's who I am. That's what I do. And so I just printed it. I keep it near me because it's the reminder of who I am. Like someone asked me several weeks ago when we were talking about these social justice issues, and it was in the Christian context, like, well, are you a Christian or are you Black first? I said, yes. Yes. Oh, yes.
And why can't we be both? We are both. We're everything.
Absolutely. They are not in conflict. They're not in conflict at all.
Not
Unless
at all.
you tell me some scripture that show they're in conflict, you better speed on.
Well, listen, I think this is such an amazing and thoughtful question, talk, and I always, I want to leave some room for us to talk about our ancestors for the future. So what is the message that we're going to send to our ancestors to the future? We talked about in the last panel what we want to tell them. Now we're in a position to pave the way for our future. What are we going to share? Lynette, you got something for us?
I think so. That's why I think last time we talked about what we wanted to tell the generation coming beyond, right? So today we're talking about what we want to tell our ancestors around things. And to me, it's around gratitude and thanks. And to me, it's around, you know, really acknowledging what they did to get us here, but also being aware of the things that I am releasing and that I no longer need to carry because of the progress that has been made. And I think that for me is just gratitude. I think, you know, gratitude, community, remembering that, to James's point, that you can multiply the impact that you have, and not forgetting that, and letting them know I won't forget that, and that will continue to be my purpose. That's what I would tell them.
And
All right, for our future, what we want to say.
to the future generations,
Yeah.
I would say, you know, that the work will continue, and don't expect for it to necessarily ease up, right? The folks before us gave a lot, committed a lot. It cost them a lot, and hopefully we're demonstrating our commitment to doing the same. And hopefully we made it a little easier for you, but don't let up. Don't take your eye off the ball. Don't look away, right? As I said before in my poem, I call it upper hand thinking, right? Upper handers don't just go away. They want upper hand benefits. And if you turn away from it, those folks will slink back. And so, you know, if you put it in biblical terms, man, that's a sinful nature, okay? So we just need to be on our guard and keep doing what we do and keep working at it and be in there. So be up for the game, pick up the mantle. Hopefully we pass it to you in a good place.
Yeah, I mean, for me, what we're telling the future generation.
Yeah.
And I really want the future generations to really just be open to the intersectionality of our Blackness. And, you know, just being able to, and I know it's like, you know, it's words saying, oh, you know, embrace everybody, but to really like understand, like, you know, even I think Lynette had mentioned before about, you know, understanding like our privilege, you know, and understanding, but also being able to be open to other lived experiences within our Blackness, you know, like being open and advocating, like using your privilege to advocate for all kinds of Black people, you know, Black disabled people, Black trans people, Black queer people, Black femmes, like all of us. And if you don't understand that lived experience, to unpack that, you know, it's okay that we don't know it all. Like, and, you know, I want the future generations to know that it is okay that you don't know everything. And it is okay that you're constantly changing and you're constantly learning and you're constantly educating yourself. So yeah, that's what I have, just embracing all intersectionalities of our Blackness, because, you know, I mean, I know that this has been said, but, you know, until all of us are free, none of us are free.
Indeed.
Yeah, and on that note, you know, I want them to know that the freedom that they have now, that they're experiencing, it wasn't free. It was a sacrifice of time, of loved ones, of, you know, their well-being, our well-beings, so that they can have the type of freedom that they're experiencing now. But you know, what they have to realize is that they have to stand for something in this moment. Adopt a cause and identify what that legacy living will be for you in this very moment. One thing that, you know, I expose my 3 beautiful, brilliant kids to is just, you know, activism and advocating. We went to the commitment march, and it's like, you have to stand for something and be okay with all of the other things. Hey, create the wave.
Yes.
Don't ride it.
Yes.
That's good.
That's so beautiful. I think for my future, you know, my son and everybody else that is coming after me, even the, you know, Black women that want to have a corporate, you know, career, anybody, or just want to just do anything, you know, you're right. What you're feeling is true. What they're telling you about yourself is not real. And understand that this is the training that you're going to do to excel, and don't give up. Do not give up. Keep moving forward. And in that, I want to thank all of you for your time and your beautiful stories and your shared wisdom and this wonderful conversation. I want to thank again ThinkHuman and 15Five for giving us this platform and this space, and all the work that came into doing this. Most importantly, I want us to all think about, you know, who we want to be in this next generation. What side of history do we want to be on? For everyone, you know, there may be some parts of what our ancestors have done that made us really proud. And there's some of us that had some parts of what our ancestors did that did not make us very proud. And how we can move forward is up to us in this generation, in this moment in time. So with that, go ahead and make a version of this around the world. Thank you all.
Thank you, Latoya.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. See you, family.
Bye.
Bye.
Out.